Well, hello there.
Hello.
It's definitely been a little while, and I have to improvise how I'm doing things because I'm traveling, and I won't be around my typical equipment, and my phone makes me sound like a 20-year-old. We're going to have to deal with that. I've been very busy.
I can't talk right now. I'm making piss.
And I also got promoted. So for those in the Navy, I went through chief season. So that was 6 weeks of my time that wasn't mine. And it did put a lot of things in perspective for me, which I did appreciate retrospectively, but not not in the moment, as I'm sure some of you may know. But
Hey, what's going on?
definitely an interesting experience, and it disconnected me from the world for a while. And don't worry, I'm not going to become my rank. All right. I haven't done it this entire time. I've been in the Navy 17 years. It's not going to start now.
I don't believe you. What?
I've also been teaching a lot. I've been going through a lot of schools, getting qualifications and certifications, and now I'm also teaching. So it's definitely been interesting, and getting used to my new title and everything is, yeah, when they say, "Hey, Chief," I don't know who they're talking to half the time. But definitely didn't expect to get here, so that's nice. I'm going to be rolling other footage, so it's just going to be a mishmash of nonsense going on to cover up this pointing at a wall. And I know you guys have been asking for an update for a while. There's two reasons I haven't done one. One, I've been incredibly busy. And two, with some of my perspective changes, a lot of people aren't ready to hear what I have to say. But that said, as far as current events and everything go, one, I have to be extremely careful because still, you know who pays the bills. But what I want to impart on everybody is there is constantly a war for your influence, your mind, your money, and your vote. A lot of people are going to start telling me about how votes don't matter and we flooded the system. We didn't even, the midterms, by the way, I've said this before, I'll say it again now that I have everybody's attention because I've been away for a while. We didn't flood the system. That whole narrative that we flooded the system and didn't win back the House and the Senate is nonsense. We didn't even break 50%. So if you want to sit there and tell me you flooded the system, get those numbers up and then come talk to me. Global events, home front events, all this other stuff. There is a constant war for your mind and your money and your influence, as well as your vote. So your mind conditioning you to believe certain things. And if all of these things weren't important, the four things I just listed, then disinformation campaigns or fake stories or any of this stuff wouldn't exist. It wouldn't be required. Same thing for money. You can see it with international events, how they just want US dollars and US support. Our three biggest exports used to be energy, but now it's just the US military and our petrodollar. Those are our influence. And it's very important for a lot of these countries to operate with our military and with our money, which is why you're seeing a lot of the things you're seeing. There's also a massive effort to divide people along faction lines, and I'll tell you that the current conflict in the Middle East right now is shaking things up socially, and you're seeing a fragmentation within established groups, be it the left or the right. You're seeing a lot of fragmentation, and the extreme fringes are peeling off and becoming almost excommunicated because of their position. And you're seeing people align that would never have aligned before. You're seeing people that can't stand to suck the same oxygen into their lungs As someone who believes this way, you're seeing those people align on issues. You're seeing people that you would never see headlines for, like the Black Israelites fighting pro-Palestinian people, because a few months ago those same people were on the same side of the fence. So you're seeing a fragmentation, and it's becoming this thing where, because there's not a strong global presence, and deterrence is a huge thing, right? So a lot of people are, again, without getting too crazy here, I have to be extremely careful, but comparing leadership from previous administration to this administration, a lot of people don't understand the implications. Like, a lot of these gun channels are like, oh, previous POTUS did the bump stock ban, and now because it, like, that's the one thing he did, right, for the 2A stuff that everybody will never let go. And that's fine, never let it go. And then they ignore this administration, right? And they forget about the meeting that the ATF had with that they had with the Brady campaign and all those anti-gun administrations beforehand. So even if the bump stock ban wasn't on the table or wasn't a thing, they were still going to do frames and receivers. They were still going to do pistol braces, and they were because that was on their wish list. And they were still going to ban smoke bombs and all this other stuff. They're taking all these things away incrementally. It was always a plan. That's how the left operates, right? There are people that are against the previous POTUS. That's fine. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. But you can see the difference in leadership styles and how that plays out on a global stage and how it plays out on an economic stability stage and a few other things. Different policies, as they've been implemented, have caused these issues. And you're also seeing, for those of you that still watch the news from time to time, I've just been bombarded with it while I'm eating breakfast in the hotel. But and they rotate between CNN and Fox News. I can't stand either these days. I couldn't stand either for a very long time, quite frankly. I get a lot of my news from independent sources, but you hear both sides pushing similar talking points and stumbling over themselves, having to cross their partisan lines to fight for your mind, influence, money, and vote. So moving forward, I just want all of you to understand that all of those things are important. And on the voting aspect, if that wasn't important, right, all the things that everyone's upset about, the inaccuracies, the cheating, the stealing, the lying, all that stuff, the gaslighting, none of that would be happening if it wasn't important. So the same lines that if they can't get you to vote their way, they want you to stay home so they can take it. You know, like, I've called back to my old hometown, and I've apparently been voting there since I've been gone. So I had to get that taken care of. And they wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't important, right? They wouldn't be taking it if it wasn't important. So I just want all of you guys to understand that, all right? No matter what the issue is, I had an extremely interesting experience. I had a junior sailor have a short-term issue, and I had to drive him away from the remote range where we were holding the qualification from that post you guys saw with the M18 breaking, and I had to drive him back, and his demographics don't matter, but they don't match mine. And he's a young individual, and he was talking about how he made social media posts about like a Starbucks cup, and he was getting beat down by people of his particular demographics, and he didn't understand the Middle Eastern conflict. And he was getting upset because he was trying to understand both sides before coming to an opinion on something. And the partisanship he had to fight because there were two sides pulling at him to make a decision and side with them. And if this individual didn't do that, then they were facing incredible pressures and backlashes. And he didn't understand that. And I tried to explain it to him the best I could. And my position on the Middle East situation is kind of down the middle. And I've personally been to Israel more than a few times. And I promise you, people would much rather live under a government that's similar to Israel's and a government similar to what's in Gaza. But that notwithstanding, it's very difficult to apply Western values and our values over here that are in geographic isolation from them to Eastern realities. So before anyone gets uppity about this is this and this is that, there's a lot of realities that you haven't seen firsthand. And I saw it in 2018 on a deployment, but it's changed from then to now. It hasn't in a lot of ways, but it has as well. So there's a lot of things you have to take into account. The only thing I'd like to stress to anybody and urge them to do is before you make definitive statements or before you take a side or do any of that stuff, do as much research as possible that's independent of somebody pushing a narrative or trying to gain your influence, mind, money, or vote. It's very difficult to do, but it is possible. So on the domestic front, you have the FCC passing broad internet control that needs to be fought at the Supreme Court level. It's, again, Chevron deference, I think. I have to look more into it, but based on the initial reporting I've looked at and the amount of time I've had to sink into it, I don't know. It's not good. I know that. So it has to be fought at the Supreme Court level. If that control is allowed to stay in place, then a lot of independent media is going to go away. And anytime we get close to a significant event or there's a crisis or something like that, they'll just lock everything down. And the internet equity thing is just nonsense. Also, the ATF banning smoke bombs and things like that. They didn't even think about the maritime applications like flare guns and things like that. So that's going to be funny. Your 4th of July fireworks, all that stuff, ridiculous. A lot of guys are celebrating the pistol brace thing and the frames and receivers, which is worthy of celebration. But it's not over yet. That injunction didn't come from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court didn't overturn it, and it's going to get appealed again. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth. There's some channels. I did have a nice discourse with somebody, so I don't want to point that individual out. So this comment is independent of the conversation I had with that individual. But just speaking to people that are like, well, you should have waited. You shouldn't have done anything, blah, blah, blah. I was pretty clear about this before. I'm a YouTuber and I'm a federal government employee. The ATF has jurisdiction over federal government, and there's so many 3-letter agencies watching YouTube that they could have had me overnight if they wanted me. You know what I'm saying? So a state agency can't tell the military what to do. We always turn the people over, right? But a federal agency, if they want people, they'll get them. And you can go look at Mr. Guns and Gear, all those stories he covered about the sailors that got snapped up. All they have to do is show up and grab people. So some of y'all don't understand, and I get it. That notwithstanding, everybody had to make their own decision, and I didn't disparage anybody for making those decisions. The one thing I will say, because some channels are beating their chest and how smart they were and all this other stuff, those dudes didn't have their pistol braces on their AR-15 pistols. They weren't continuing to shoot them on their channel. And one thing that's, again, being away for so long, I'm extremely disappointed with our community in general. It's a bunch of empty virtue signaling. It always has been. And I've known this for a while, but just seeing the state of things, you know, like the shit they're pushing you, right? They're pushing AAC ammo, which has incredible quality control issues. So much so it's on PSA's website, on their forums. There's shit everywhere about how bad the ammo is, but these people are still pushing it. SDI, Sonoran Desert Institute, they're not respected in gunsmithing anywhere. So you don't see a bunch of people hiring from SDI. And the USCCA, they pulled legal support on a case that they thought they were going to lose. You know what I'm saying? So all this stuff is just people buying ad space, and it's being hawked, and they're gaining all of this money off of our community. Our community used to be like, hey, this is quality, get this. and now everybody's selling out to Chinese companies and all this other shit. It's just disgusting, really. And they're hawking you bad shit. The ads that they're giving you are nonsense. And then I will watch people die in comment sections on the hill of, no, it's good because Garantham said it's good, or, oh, it's good because this person said it's good, or it's quality. Like, show me. And then they can't. It's this, it's demonstrate this working, and they can't. So I'm just disgusted with the community and everything, the industry, all that stuff as a whole. Like, you either know about the quality and use it, or it just becomes this echo chamber of these ads were bought through Leviathan Group, who sells you this shit, and you just suck it up. It's like, consume, idiot. It's so stupid. But nothing's going to change. And I'm sure someone will just buy a Leviathan Group ad about how bad Navy Man is and all this other stuff. That's happened before. Anyhow, that notwithstanding, I'm just really, I don't have patience for it anymore. And I didn't have patience with it to begin with, but I'd hold my tongue. I don't care anymore. I really don't. I barely did in the first place. I'm just not okay with a lot of stuff. And there's very few people that I respect their opinion anymore. And that list is growing smaller and smaller by the day. And lastly, I was in Maine, in Brunswick, for the shooting on leave. So I took a week of leave, and 4 days of it revolved around that. I'm not going to say everything's above board or there's not areas of concern. One thing I want to tell everyone from my perspective while I was up there is a lot of people were calling us, asking us questions that they saw in the national news that wasn't accurate. And I've been a part of this before. I've been doing the hurricane relief in Puerto Rico before. And what the news was saying and what was actually happening were two fundamentally different things. And it was similar up in Maine. The national disinformation was insane. And I had people calling me up there like, hey, is this happening right now? And I'm like, no. So Maine is a very unpopulated state. I think there's like 1.3 or 1.4 million people in Maine. It's not a lot. So they rely on a lot of outside agencies. And the quality, I don't want to say anything definitively, right? So I went up there for a week on leave. But if you think about 1.3 million people, 1.4, we'll call it 1.4. I know it's not, but it's close. But if you think of 1.4 million people, the percentage of those that are law enforcement and the percentage of those that actually see stuff happen in Maine, they rely on a lot of people from outside agencies to come assist them. So from New Hampshire, the Border Patrol that is up in Maine, and a bunch of other places, they rely on them to respond within Maine as a support element. So the other thing too, those that haven't been to Maine, it's remote as shit. It's like baby Alaska. It's cold as fuck. There's bears. There's trees everywhere. It is super easy to disappear. And a lot of people were talking a tough, mean game, but have no fucking clue what they're talking about. So there's an element of improper information that was put out by a lot of sources. And I just want everybody to be objective when they're reviewing things, which is difficult. And in the moment, that quote by Denzel Washington about the media was perfect.
What do you make of all the fake news that it affects?
If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed.
So what do you do?
That's a great question. What is the long-term effect of too much information? One of the effects is the need to be first, not even to be true anymore. So what a responsibility you all have to tell the truth, not just to be first, but to tell the truth. We live in a society now where it's just first. Who cares? Get it out there. We don't care who it hurts. We don't care who we destroy. We don't care if it's true. Just say it, sell it. Anything you practice, you'll get good at, including BS.
You told me last time.
Okay. But you heard me? Does that make sense?
I hear it.
Everybody's trying to be first. No one's trying to be accurate. And I saw things up there that, again, soured my taste for a lot of stuff. So I know I front loaded you with a lot of negativity, but let's take it to a happy place on the closeout here. So during this whole event, everything was closed. And I mean everything. Grocery stores, banks, post office, everything was shut down. Ghost town. But this dude kept his business open. And he was a boomer, and he said fudge shit. And normally that kind of person would make me not want to be around them, because there's a bunch of stuff. But he, just like those dudes post on social media with their real name and wild shit, this dude kept his business open, and he said some stuff that really resonated with me and I thought was very deep. And it was action. It wasn't just talking. So he kept his business open, and he said, I think it's really important for people to have community, have a place they can go that they normally go, and be able to talk to each other and see that the world is not this shitty thing everywhere. And I was just shocked by that gesture and that statement. He gave people the normalcy that they were looking for in a chaotic situation. And I know there's some people that would have something to say about it, and there's a lot of people that, would be like, oh, that's just some small thing. It was a small thing, but it went a very long way in a very shitty situation. So between that and me being disconnected from everything for a while, the most wholesome thing that I did was take time to think and ponder and see the world for what it is, not what people were telling me it is. And things are tough. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can just go kumbaya, right? But I'll tell you, there were moments where I would just sit, experience weather, be outside, and ponder and get deep in my thoughts and just do what I could. And the stress I was going through and the stress my friends were going through and all this other stuff, it was so critically important just to disconnect for a while, sit down and reflect and just see things for what they were. See the sunrise, see a nice park full of people, like do these things, right? So make sure you're taking time for yourself. Make sure you go for walks, you go out and see the moon. Just take moments. The people used to sit on the porch and just talk and drink and smoke or whatever. Like whatever they would do out there to unwind, people would just sit on the porch and talk. No one does that anymore. Like we've lost a massive sense of community for the social media stuff, and everybody just, this brain rot, this mind virus is just eating people alive. And Cokeman, on his last update that he did, his last news update, most people would scoff at it, but he said some absolutely deep shit in there. He said,
the noose feels like it's tightening. Now, it isn't. It's just the information warfare. It's a crossroads of the evolutionary step of our species because we can communicate at fucking light speed and beyond, if you want to listen to some fucking autistic retards. Having the internet, not good for most people, especially when you consider the fact that 2/3 of the world's population would probably assume to just beat you over the head with a rock if you looked at them sideways. Literal caveman shit compared to, there are a lot of idiots here too, obviously, including myself, but whatever's gonna have to happen happens. It's gonna happen sooner or later. But I think right now everything is so scary and everything seems to be like teetering is just simply because of the information saturation that we have, and any news outlet or anyone else for that matter is probably going to latch on to a negative headline. There are so few positive headlines, and if there are positive headlines, they have nothing to do with shit that's fucking important. Usually important stuff is unfortunately negative.
He said some extremely profound shit because he's a lot smarter than he plays at, and I'm not kissing his ass. Just watching the guy throughout the years, he is crass, he drinks, he does stuff on purpose. I tell people he's belligerent on purpose. But the end of that video, he said some of the most profound shit about social media and the human experience and all this stuff that I really think people need to see and reflect on. So that's in the description. But he just said these extremely deep things, and I don't think it's getting the credit it deserves, quite frankly, because it's right on the nose. It's a perfect assessment. Don't let this shit consume you, and don't let it change or be who you are. Go outside, talk to folks, like be a member of your community. Even if you're an introvert or you don't like people, the older I get, the saltier I get, right? But just talk to people and be kind. Show them that there's something past all the nonsense. You know, you see those videos of people legitimately helping animals or legitimately helping people in need, you know, or those old videos that people put on YouTube where it's right in the middle of a lightning storm and there's a flood and they pull like people out of cars and save them. You know, none of those people know each other. Like, be a part of your town, be a part of your community, your city, whatever. And not everybody's good people, but take yourself out of things for a moment. Remove yourself from the pit that you're in. Go to the gym, go for a run, you know, work out, get your mind, body, and soul right, because it goes so much further than any of this throwaway shit that happens on social media or any of these people hawking you garbage or any of this stuff. It is so much, life is so much bigger and so much better than all of this shit. And the things I experienced in Greece going on hikes, just the scenery alone is humbling, you know, seeing a comet or a meteor shower or just, I was going through final night and there was a moment where they kept recycling me through an evolution and I couldn't get it right. But there was a pond in trees and a full moon. And it was just so, I didn't even care. I like took myself out of that moment and just transcended that moment and saw how important not being consumed by it was. Just reflecting how all of this shit, you can get through anything if you have the correct mindset. So if I stress anything to you, it's take these holistic approaches, right? You know, make sure you're taking care of yourself the best you can. Make sure you're going to the gym. Make sure you're eating as well as you can. And I know things are tough. I know things are bad, but we can get through this. It's all about being a community, getting people together and going the right direction. And that's what's important to me. Not money, not all this other horse shit. Just something I thought I'd share. I do miss you guys.
Why are you gay?
I am going to continue my channel. I'm not leaving or anything. It's just hard for me right now with everything going on in the holidays and me moving around and bouncing around and doing all this stuff to actually sit down and get things done. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to try to get back to one a month, but it's going to take a long time to get there with everything I have going on. And as far as projects go, I have probably about 4 or 5 more rifles I'm going to do as far as purchasing and building. And then I have what I have now that I'm going to build out. So those are all going to happen. Handgun wise is about the same, like 4 or 5, and then I'm done. The rest is going to be suppressors and nods, just getting things set up, and gear. That's it. You know, I'm pushing into those things. I'm getting older, you know, so I don't need to be chasing the hot new thing all the time. I will be doing stuff. I did have a mind to buy an M18 and just put it through its paces and then show you guys how it breaks and break down like why they're bad. But I realized that the people that already know this are going to accept it and the people that don't won't. So it's really an exercise in futility and it'll be confirmation bias. But I am still going to do the M18 video. So strap in for that.
I don't know, I just woke up from a little nap. It's a little dark, but you guys silly? I'm still gonna send it.
And I do have some more optics I'm going to be getting. Some Night Force, some Trigicon, and some more Steiners I'm going to be getting. And those are going to be my core group. I will, outside of that, get a Delta Striker 1 to 6, and that's probably about it at this point. I wanted to get the SAI, but I have to prioritize like what I'm actually going to be doing. So I might borrow an SAI to do a review on. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I just want to get my guns set up, get the suppressors on them, you know, get my nods, get my helmet, all that stuff, and just coast. Because, you know, there's a lot of other important things in life. And quite frankly, I retire in 3 years. So I'm going to have to find another job. But yeah, guys, I really appreciate y'all sticking with me. The messages here and there, people commenting on my posts, the discussions y'all have in the comments, you know, just the community that we have on this channel. And I'm not changing. So I'm not going to start asking you guys for money. I'm not going to start like a Patreon or any of that shit. I'm just going to continue to exist. I've outlasted other huge channels, and I will continue to do so. So I will always be here.
You know why I'm here.
And until I become the thing that I hate, you know, you either die a hero or live long enough to watch yourself become the villain. So once I start being a FUD or start saying wild shit that's not applicable, I'm going to be doing this. So I love y'all.
Why are you gay?
Thanks for watching. Take care out there.